Hey, today is Wednesday. Here we are with the Dev Talk Show. We're back for another week. And we are here with Chris Gomez, who is trying to figure out his
Think I'm good now.
audio.
Yep, there it is.
You think he's good now, so
Yep.
he's got audio.
Nice.
And here we are. How's it going, Chris?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
For some reason, my mic setting got changed, and so when we switched to the scene, I was like, "Oh, look, my bar's not moving. I wonder why."
Hey, the good news is, let's turn this into like a story about software development, right? Sometimes we have bugs in our code, right? Or, we have problems in our code. What's cool is when when I don't hear about it from a customer, right? When I hear about it from internally, where someone says, "Hey, we have monitoring going, and I think there's a problem with our app," right? Because if we don't have monitoring going, then we don't know there's a problem until a customer finds it, right? And uh, and so you just did, what we strive for, which is like, we have a setup, we have the best case scenarios, hopefully, we test things, but things go wrong. But you have monitoring, right? You have a way to know that something's going wrong. And I'm sort of making a joke out of it a little bit,
No.
but that's a big deal at work. Nothing makes me, it really makes me happy when someone says, "Hey, I found a problem before the customer is finding the problem." Like, yes, you're doing it right. Like, it's good.
No, I
Um,
hear you.
and Meg's
Monitor
here. Hi,
DevOps.
Meg. Long time no see, Meg, or no here, or no chat, or what do you say? No,
Yeah. What do you What do you
we
say?
can't hear her. But welcome, Meg. Nice to see your name here again.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
I was just talking because Chris was trying to figure things out. How's it going, everybody?
Pretty good. Where are we
Good.
here on the 16th of February? Can you believe we're halfway through February already? At least that's how I feel about it. I can't say for sure if the year is going by fast or slow for everybody, but I feel like it's moving.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
where
I
you know
guess
it.
it is. Yeah, like yesterday, it felt like, oh yeah, we just started the year,
Yeah.
and here we are on the 16th. Like, wow. Today's Benny's birthday, by the way.
Oh,
Oh,
happy
wow.
birthday,
Happy
Benny,
birthday,
who
man.
has a famous podcast, right? Football Talk with Benny. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a
he's doing
YouTube
really
channel,
well.
and I see he has guests on. Like, is that a giant? No. Is it I it's a is it a fan from like an Eagles fan or something that he sometimes does a co-host show with? Yeah,
He
okay.
does. He does this thing called Rival Podcast or
Yeah,
something
that's the
like
one.
that, right?
Love
And sometimes they're on his channel and sometimes they're on the other guy's channel. They sort of rotate it. I tell you, man, I'm jealous of his commitment and his ability to dedicate time to his channel because he makes content all the time. He just churns out videos, whether it's live or whether it's just a recorded thing. And I'm like, oh, I remember the days when I could churn out content. I mean, I know, you guys know how it is, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could just like make videos all day and stuff like that? Love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
That would be fun.
And
Kayaking is on the channel too in chat. Looking forward to learning about real life uses of Git. So am I.
I like
Uh,
that. So am I, because who the heck knows, right?
Some of my favorite shows are when Chris shows the Git. My problem is retention because there's been times like, where a year will go and we might do a similar show and you'll show something. And I'm like, I wish I remember this because I think he showed us that like a year ago. And I have trouble, committing to it, but I remember it usually for a while and I'll use the stuff you tell us. And it's great. You're always solving problems for us. For those of you listening in or watching, nothing like having your own Git help desk. And Rich and I, we have Chris. Like I'm telling you, there's an email midday from my work account going, Chris, something's wrong in Git here. Help me. You know, um, it's nice to have your own help desk for Git.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's incredibly hard to teach though. Like I've really struggled with it. Um I have had the unfortunate issue of maybe talking for an hour and then feeling like I left people more confused. And so finding that sweet spot has been really hard. And I've tried many times, and I really do. I don't think it's really all. I think the thing I do, I feel like we make it too complicated. So I try to make it simpler. And I kind of feel like there's just, I was trying to come up with this talk that was something like the 4 commands you really need. And I'm not sure that I could really pin down the 4, but I've tried. So that one's still a work in progress. I don't actually.
That's not this show.
No,
that's not this show. But that's a good idea to focus on like 4 commands or something like that. It's a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like it's a chunk that we can, like they say, like a 7-digit number is something we can remember as a human or something like that, right? With 4, concept of 4 is something that like can be that's a good idea. Consumable. Maybe is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, like bite size. Is that the word?
Bite size. But, I was thinking about that. Yeah.
So I have actually been thinking lately, like the trend on YouTube is smaller and smaller videos, and I thought, one way to approach this, instead of trying to figure out the whole course, because that's hard to think, like how do you layer on A to B to C to D, is maybe just pick something and say, okay, 5 minutes on Git checkout.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Just that. And everything I can brain dump in like 5 minutes. Now, here's the other problem that I run into is maybe more than almost any other piece of software we developers use. I think I hadn't really come to this conclusion until the other day that there may not be another piece of software that's more vital to what we all do now that we all use so differently. Like I just said Git commands, and you know what some people will say is, well, I don't use the command line. I just use what's in Visual Studio Code, or I like Source Tree, or I like GitHub Desktop, and they'll ask me like, well, what do you think about Tower or Fork? And I'll say, it's been a while since I've done a survey of all the IDEs, which is something I kind of want to get back to. But as you can all imagine, there's a lot of time investment in that. You really got to sit down with them and be serious about them and try to vet them out, not just from my own point of view, because that's not totally fair. It should also be usability point of view, or because it's too simple for me to say that this has too much magic. This makes it easy in a way that you won't be happy. Well, wait, easy isn't bad. Just people get into trouble, and that's the thing that I feel like if I can help people feel like you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry. We all get into situations that we might not be happy with, but I hope that you don't worry and you just say, oh, okay, I think I see what happened here, and you kind of just do something. So
yeah, definitely. Everybody has different ways of using these tools.
So we got this is great. I love this comment here. Oh, come on, come up for me. Or I still use TFVC.
Yeah, Loca with the comment there. Yeah, and I was actually following up. I put a comment in the chat. I know firsthand. We could joke around about like TFVC, and we could joke around about a lot of things, right? But we also know firsthand that when an organization makes a commitment to a platform, not always that easy to switch off it, right? And a lot of times it's not a developer's, it's also not maybe the developer's fault. They're like, hey, listen, my manager says we're using TFVC, we're using it, right? So, that's a real world situation. But, I think, I would say this, right? My organization made the change here. We changed from TFVC to Git. Now we use Git on Azure, not GitHub, but Git on Azure. And I would say of all the, if it might be a stretch to call that a platform shift or something like that, but of all the changes that I've been a part of, changing source controls in the past, or changing from one work item tracking system to another. We're changing from one type of deployment pipelines to another type. Like we've all made these changes before, right? Switching source control, it was actually a pretty doable exercise. We told teams, hey, grab a couple of repos and move them over and start using it, and then start moving more repos over. And I got to say, if people are listening and people are saying, oh, I'm worried about making that change. Nothing is perfect. Nothing goes totally smooth all the time. But generally speaking, I think you can import things and there's ways to get history. I don't recall, but what we always do with these things is we'll keep like the history, like we'll keep the old one around in read-only mode, and we'll just copy over. And so, especially for certain applications that haven't been changed in a while, they're not too bad. But I guess my point is I would encourage people to give that a shot, to try to go to Git, because it's such a different experience, and it's so I don't know, ubiquitous or whatever. I mean, it's just becomes such the standard, right? That it's worth.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's the thing is that it's become almost universal.
More so than I can remember. SVN was pretty popular for a long time, and it felt like it was the thing. But I think Git more so, like, just has total domination.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And not just for developers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about there are different scenarios, right? You talk about ML ops for those who are doing machine learning, doing DevOps for Power Platform, and Git as the repository, or as the mechanism for talking to your repository becomes, outside of just your typical developer community.
Yeah. So it's a good idea to move to that if you can. That's the rant or whatever you want to call it there. The advice from me, go for it. And that's one of the ones where we tell people, rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Try a repo, get the team comfortable with it. But the only way you're going to learn the Git commands or the tools or whatever it is, to rip the Band-Aid off and start using it. And if you get stuck, you call Chris.
Exactly.
I wish I could find a tweet that I read earlier. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and I don't know that I will, but it essentially said that it absolutely amazed them, the capacity of humans to take a valuable software product and immediately start trying to use it in ways that it was never designed for. And you mentioned how Git is being used for things like, say, Git Ops, right? I don't know if folks have heard of that idea that, hey, maybe you're, and I'm, for folks who are really into Git Ops, I am going to apologize in advance because I am somewhat intentionally cutting short what Git Ops really is. But just to give you one example, it's the idea that, like, maybe our configuration should also be a source control repo, and the act of committing a change to that repo kicks off configuration changes. I am definitely short selling it. I'm not trying to, this was not a GitOps talk. Thank you for coming to it. But that's my point. I'm kind of
bothered by the name of that, GitOps. Like, to me, that's not what it should be called.
Yeah, well,
it's config ops is what it is. Git is the mechanism. Like you have DevOps.
ML ops.
Like, what's that?
ML ops. For
but I know it's called GitOps. But
no, I know. But really, you're right. It's not the tool ops. It's the discipline ops, right? So config makes sense.
Exactly. I don't know, like, where some of these, who makes these names and who gets them trendy. It's not me. I don't have that much influence, right? But I would say call it config ops or call it something else ops. But
actually, I found it. I found the tweet, and it's a good friend of ours too.
A good friend of ours.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it, right? Is let me see here.
Like, I'm waiting. Chris is going to be like, yeah, here it is from Scott Goo. And I'm like, oh, no. It's a good friend of ours now. Like, we claiming that.
So I saw this tweet earlier today. Law of Tech, the number, and I know I'm not sharing my screen, but it should pop up on the stream.
Yeah, I'm trying to see it.
Law of
Yeah.
tech, the number and complexity of scenarios users try to apply to a given tech will always outpace what it's actually designed to accommodate. Which, like, that was the first thing I thought of is hey, Git is successful. And it's successful at content tracking. Like, that's what it's designed for. It's designed to track content over time. Yeah. And so, well, what if we made it so that a Git commit kicked off automation? And what if we made it so that we stored our business contracts there too? Well, now that might be, that's content tracking. But I thought, and then of course it's the restatement. The more things it can do, the more things people will want it to do or try to use it for. And I thought, that's pretty cool, because absolutely something that I think we see all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I was also thinking, I mean, I guess we at some point we'll start getting into the real meat of the show here, right? But I think about what we do with documentation, and how, we have these docs that have that little, like, make a change to me, or update, update this doc. And you click it, and you're really just making a change to a repo, right with the docs. And I know that's still content, what you're saying, but yeah, I guess that could have been done if someone had thought about it with something like SVN or whatever, but I think we've just gotten so much better at what, some of it is just the mindset, right? That I think we're in more of a source control mindset than ever before, right? Where we think about putting our docs in like everything is source control, and you hear less skimping, and like you said, it's not all just developers using it, like, or traditional developers that we think of. I think we're really in a source control mindset that it is really established as such, like, a base pattern for doing stuff. And that's when I think you get all these other ideas, this whole idea of, like, doing docs through there, and it's all just very, very doable. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. It's just, so when I hear that maybe instead of keeping a shared folder, whether that could be, I mean, believe it or not, there's still sometimes the way businesses send content back and forth as email, or even like secure FTP, or maybe they'll share a SharePoint site, or a Confluence site, like that still happens. In fact, it's very common. I have seen teams say, well, gosh, what if we had a Git repo and we just, the customer can make new commits and we can make new commits. And then what happens? They immediately start running around saying, boy, we had this awful merge conflict and we didn't know what to do. And so the reason I shudder is because I think, wow, we have a hard time figuring out how to make this work well for source text files. It's not that I think you're not, it has nothing to do with saying, I don't want non-developers. No, that's not it. It's just, you're going to try to make this you're going to try to use this now for something that maybe doesn't fit that mold. It could be PDFs or something else that's not just text, which I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
So I think, I'm going to go off on another random thing here, just having a little fun here at the beginning of the show, but nobody notices anything different about me.
The beard's gone.
The beard is gone. Remember last week? It was like a beast of a beard, and you guys didn't even notice. I mean, Meg hasn't been on in a while. I feel like if Meg had been on recently, she would have noticed. I think she noticed when I grew my beard, but she hasn't been around in a while. I feel like, I shaved off the big bushy beast of a beard. And I guess I'm saying it because I'm seeing myself in the camera and I'm seeing my face and I'm like, yeah, I'm not used to it. But yeah, see, Meg would have said something. No, it's okay, Meg. It's okay. Meg's saying in the chat here. So, Chris, why don't we? What do you think about, like, sort of diving into some of the real Git content? Are you ready for that?
Yeah. Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, right. Is this show about Git after that whole intro? I think that was a good setup for Git and talking about this stuff. Can you share to us also?
I'm trying to figure out how to share.
Yeah.
It's fighting me.
They moved the button probably. Yeah, so I see it on the what's a Git? A Git is a isn't that like also a British slang for somebody who's kind of like a dope or an idiot or something like that, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anybody have any thought on it? A Git, they say, oh, you silly Git or something like that. And I hope I'm not using a bad word. I don't think it's like a bad word. But I think it means like, you're kind of like a dope or something like that.
I will tell you that I guess I might not be too surprised if there was a little bit of intention behind it.
Thank you.
If you don't know, if anyone who doesn't know, Git is the brainchild of Linus Torvalds, who is well known as the creator maintainer of the Linux kernel. And I'm not going to try and say that I'm up to date on exactly what role he takes in the kernel anymore, but there's a tech talk that he gave at Google, as you can see, quite some time ago. And I've watched this. It'll take an hour of your time. I will put the link. I'll make sure that it makes its way to I'll try to make it take its way to some of our chats, or maybe one of you can.
I got it.
So we're not going to play it, but certainly. Oh, good. I got this to blow up. Wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. It's been a while since I've seen something like that. Okay. Did I lose everything though? I did. Oh, fantastic. Hopefully everybody can hear me still.
Gotcha.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
we can hear
fine.
you.
I lost the entire setup, which is okay. Let's get that fixed, and this comes off to the side so that we can hit feature chat and all that stuff.
I'm gonna here it is. I just pasted in Git in according to Webster, the British definition is a foolish or worthless person. There you go. That's what Git is. Thanks for coming. We'll be back next week.
So like I said, it was the version control invented by Linus for Linus. He was trying to solve a particular problem of his. And that problem was he ran probably one of the world's largest open source projects, and he was receiving updates, or at least being asked to take updates from all over. And he didn't necessarily, while he was the final approver for, or like I said, I'm not sure that he still is. He was the final approver for everything. Oh yeah, look at that. I can click restore here.
Thank you, Loka. Yep.
That is a good.
It's funny how sometimes they can flash those buttons right in front of us.
I know it's only
and we
right
get
there.
so used to thinking they're noise, like, oh yeah, this is actually a good idea. I should click that.
Yeah. So the scenario that he was in is that he had a core group of people that he trusted the most, and he felt that if they delivered him a patch, that he almost without question felt that it was probably good enough for the kernel. So what he did is that if you had something that you wanted, if you had a patch you wanted to contribute, he would encourage one of his trusted maintainers to pull that patch from you, check it out, and then say to Linus, yeah, I think you should pull this from me. So in his vision of the world is that we all have Git on our machines. We all run Git servers, and they're all first-class servers, which is actually not far from the truth of how Git works. But, and that, Rich says, hey, I think you should check out some commits I have, and I'll pull them and merge them into mine, and back and forth. It turns out that's not the way the world uses it. And I think that's an important distinction. I think it's fair to say that even when it comes to an open source project, but especially a project at work, we pick a repository. Most of us usually call this the server. That's the terminology we'll use. we pick one and we say, this is the most important one. This is the one you clone from. This is the one you create. We use pull request, which is not a feature of Git. That is a feature of our tooling, GitHub, Bitbucket, and so on. Azure Repos goes on and on. We use those features to manipulate this golden repo that is more important than all the other repos. And if you watch that talk, Linus himself is kind of irked about that. But I think he recognizes, like, well, you know, not everybody can get the value out of it that I wanted, I guess. A little bit of warning about him. He certainly is known to have an abrasive personality. He goes right after the people who made some other source control systems. And there was a couple years ago that I think he posted like this long this post that he said, you know, he felt that maybe his opinion that it was okay for him to be this that way was wrong, and I actually do not know where that has gone. But he's been known for decades to be someone who can be kind of abrasive and even be seen as perhaps, I don't know if I want to use the word insulting. That might not be fair with him not here to defend himself. But in any case,
someone who's not exactly building bridges.
Yeah.
Right.
So in any case, I have a repo in GitHub, and just that statement there, I've come to realize can cause confusion for people. Like I did a short talk with some folks recently where the idea of the talk was a deep dive into how Git works internally, which we're not necessarily going to cover tonight. I mean, we could, but I don't know that it ended up being all that practical. And one of the first questions I asked is, I said, so how do you make a new Git repo? And I honestly thought that just about everybody was going to unmute their mics and say git init. But you know what somebody said? They said git clone. And I admit, at that moment, I said, oh, wow, I was way wrong about the question I asked. Because let's be real. Most of the time you go to work and you clone the existing repository. Right. That's 99.9% of what we do. I may initialize more repos than most people because I play around on GitHub, but that doesn't mean I'm running around doing it for a long-lasting open source project or a project at work. And that was a real eye-opening moment where I said, and I've had many of these when I talk about Git, where I say, oh, wow, here's an assumption that I thought was just obvious. You start a new repo with git init, and here was somebody saying, like, well, git clone is how you get a new repo. And I was like,
yeah, because they interpreted it as their common use case. Like what you said was, how do you create it? But they heard, how do I create it on my local machine from the server kind of thing, right? And, you know, we've often said, you know, how often do people get to file a new project, right? A lot of developers, you know, if it's once a year, I mean, aside from the little side projects and stuff you work on, right? But how often do you really create a new repo at work? A lot of people never get to do it, right? They've only worked on repos that existed or things like that. So it's kind of interesting to think about it like that, Chris.
Yeah. So it actually really made me think a lot about that. And I said, okay, that's good. So I guess as Meg says here, so his idea was to constantly have everyone's local repos pulling from each other to stay up to date. And that's, in a nutshell, yes, because in the early days of Git, nobody does this anymore. But in the early days of Git, you didn't just install Git, whether that was for Linux or your Mac or Git for Windows, which was in its infancy at the time. In the very, very, very early days of Git, you kind of used like a terminal inside Windows. Maybe it was Cygwin, it could be Putty to use Git. Git for Windows came along after. But then what you would do is you would run a server. And it might even be on your own machine, and you would open a port. Yeah. And like that seems totally crazy to us, but that's how it worked. Now, Linus looked at it this way. He said, I'm the hub. In the end, I pull from people I trust, but you go ahead and pull from people you trust. That's fine. And then I'm going to ask this person who tells me, hey, I really think you should take this branch, I'm going to say, yeah. And as long as I can just pull that branch because you've built it on top of my latest commit, right? And that's the kind of stuff that blows people's minds. Like, why is that so important? Because Linus just wants you to just I just want to take your extra commits. Linus felt that was important to put the burden of merging on the person adding the code. He felt that other source control systems put the burden on the person who received the new code. So what he thought happened too often in other source control systems is you, Andy, I'm going to pick on you, would put up a bunch of terrible code that you shouldn't have been in this file. You shouldn't have changed all this stuff. And then when I go to add new code, the system stops me cold and says, I'm sorry, you got to deal with Andy's mess.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So, the distributed part of Git, again, I remember learning it in the beginning, and it was a very strange concept. And like you said, we don't really use it that way.
No.
But his concept, what you just said, his concept of putting the burden, of changing where the burden lies, so to speak, is dead on a great idea.
Yeah. And to be frank, one of people's biggest frustrations with Git is that even the way we use it still kind of enforces that. So how many times have you opened a PR just to have the source control system, whether it's the CI built into GitHub or into Azure repos or into whatever system you're using, it takes one look at your PR and fails it and says, I'm sorry, you've got merge conflicts. But it's the burden is falling on you, which is kind of what he wanted. So we've done a lot of theoretical ideological talk. Let's take a look at a repository. And even though I'm going to do a lot of work from the command line, I think people who know me know that my current IDE of choice is Git Kraken. I pay for Git Kraken. It's not sponsored. I've never asked them to do anything. Although there are programs where I suppose I could become like a Git Kraken star or Git Kraken something, but I've never asked for that. I like how it displays what you see right now on the screen, which is the commit graph. And so that's a term that's part of my mental model. Is I think about the commit graph, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people think about branches. And I think about how graphs start at the top, the most recent commit, and they go backward in time. And that's because Git, if you hear this term, I'm not going to ask you all to memorize it, but because a Git commit graph is known as a
you can't commit it to memory. We can't commit it to memory.
A cyclic graph.
You haven't. Yeah. What's that?
It's a directed acyclic graph.
Wow.
Wow, huge term, right?
Have to write that one down for me and
I don't care about that.
Break that into its syllables because I don't.
I don't care about that. What's important to know is that we go back in time, right? We go back in time, and each commit points to its parents. Could have one. It could have more. So what's a common time that a commit has a parent? Well, I think that a lot of us, if you're new to Git, we're going to try to back up a little bit, even from what I'm saying here. But if you're new to Git, or not new to Git, or you use it at work, you're probably used to seeing commits like this one that says merge branch title change. Now, I don't see that branch here, but what happened was our user here, Joe, and here's his avatar, he merged in a branch called title change. And what he was doing was bringing together his work, the last commit of which was updated. He updated the title in an index.html page. He was trying to bring it together with the state of the rest of the work, which if you go back in time, you can see other stuff happen. But he wanted to bring that together. Now, Git requires that every commit has parents. It could have one. It could have multiple. So the way merges work when you're bringing together two lines of code, I'm avoiding the term branches because I don't care that they're branches. They're two lineages of commits. Is Git has to say, well, we're going to need what I call a merge commit. A merge commit is one that if you move forward from each of the previous commits, this commit still makes sense. In other words, you can go from here to here, and the one change that's important, the change to index.html, this is a pretty simple repo, so that's why this isn't the greatest example. The simple change to index.html just so happens, in this case, to also be the change that this commit needs to get both lineages in perfect harmony. What happens really when we merge? You'll see this merge commit with all this stuff that's not related to what you did. And that might freak you out a little bit, but it's because the purpose of a merge commit is to bring together everything that has been written here and everything that's written here into a commit that now joins them both in together like a great song. Because every commit, you might have the impression that a commit only knows about what's changed, and that's because what our tools tell us. That's not true. Using the commit hash, which is up here written as 8228A3, I could use what are called Git plumbing commands, which we're not going to talk about, but maybe that might be an interesting show, where I could interrogate Git and say, can you tell me all the files that make up 822A83? And Git will eventually, after punching in command after command, will say, yep, this is what that commit is made of. The entire repository, every single file, every single folder at this point in time.
That's interesting, Chris. I have to say that maybe I'm misremembering things, but I think I was under the impression that the commit was only the change set.
Yeah, I think a lot of
we
people
often think of them as
that.
So that hash that you talked about, the commit hash 8228A3. Is there another thing called a change set, or is that is that a misnomer when we call that a change set, or you know what I mean?
The commit represents the entire state of the repository at that point in time, and that hash is not some made up number. It really is hashing the data, because you can hash an arbitrary amount of data and you're going to get a hash. Now,
there really is a hash. I always thought it was just like a random number.
No, it really is a hash, and
that's why they call it a hash. They're doing the right thing. Okay.
Yep. And so, this is tough because I can get lost in these weeds, and I can say, yeah, this commit 822A83, it represents the whole repo, and you'll be like, gosh, I don't know, it's just one line change. That seems wasteful. Well, again, there's a whole talk that I have done in the past where we dive into the commit, and what you find is that Git also stores every file that you've ever created and gives it a hash. And so now it's able to create a commit where it says, look, this commit is made up of all these objects with all these hashes. Maybe you only changed one of those objects and the other 10 million of them are the same hashes that they were before. That's okay. That's where Git doesn't actually write every file every time. It doesn't do that. But in order for this commit to have meaning to Git, it has to be able to walk back in both directions without being incorrect. So as far as Git is concerned, this change index.html, it can walk back to this state of the code, and it's fine because it says, yeah, from here to here, there was this index.html was modified, but from here to here, we added in index.js and we added a document ready.js. The reason why this merge isn't the best looking one is because if you kind of see what happened here, I may have merged this branch back in, but I didn't do any work here, so it's not the best example. I wonder if this is a better example. So this merge branch survey work is saying I took in, yeah, it's still not a better example. I'd have to kind of create one, which I can do. So let's see, what is this? This is a simple website. This is a simple website. Yeah. So I do like Windows Terminal, and I do style them so that I can say
to the comments in the chat, right?
Yeah. So we got some cool comments in the chat about Terminal. Thank you. And I do.
Meg liked it. And then Wahoo says,
I do style, and this is the Azure Cloud Shell. Right.
Yeah.
And this is PowerShell, and I just I like a darker background, but I still want it to be something. So anyways, we have here, like, let's get into this a little bit. We have a website, and it's not too complicated. I tried to keep it pretty simple. Let's see. I should have, this all should be working. Okay, cool. So
Oh yeah, that's fancy.
Yeah, it's just a simple site. In fact, this kind of looks like, like an old GeoCities site maybe. And, and let's see, does it go to the second page? No, that doesn't actually work. There is a link to a second page, and it just tells you all about hockey, and you can like pick which team is the best, right? Andy, you root for New York teams maybe? I don't know if that's true.
I was a big Rangers fan.
Oh, were you? So I could pick New York Rangers, and I could submit my
Yeah.
team choice, and it's, oh, go home Rangers, which is what Kings fans would usually chant in the arena. Or if you pick the Ducks, like, obviously, I mean, and then of course, right? So anyway, a little bit of JavaScript, no big deal. So let's take a look at how the repo looks right now. And we have a trunk, which is just the main branch. You might call it main at work. For a very long time, I've liked the term trunk because I like how it seems to me is the important line of the tree or the graph. So I often call my repos by that.
Trunk was like an SVN term, wasn't it? Like we called it
trunk. It was.
And then in Git, it was always master, and I guess that kind of went out of fashion now.
Yeah,
we're supposed to call it main.
Right, a lot of Git repos, it'll be main. I think that even Git is beginning to, I think Git will like put up a message that says like, hey, do you want to change your default or something like that? I think that is true. So, so here we go. This is the state of our project. And basically there's two people who are going to be working on it. So the first thing I want to show real quick is how many times has this happened to people? I know we've already talked for quite a bit. But how many times has this happened to you where you're at work, you might have a policy to do work on a feature branch? So, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to get the latest main or your latest trunk. In my case, that's what this is, the default branch. And then you're supposed to create a feature branch and you're supposed to work on that. But have you ever forgotten to create the feature branch? I will be honest, I actually forget quite a bit.
All the time.
Yeah, so here we go. Go into work. Here we go. My task was to add new equipment that was needed. Oh, look at GitHub Copilot coming through.
Oh my God, dude. That's awesome.
I was going to pick a piece of equipment.
Yeah,
and it's like, you're going to need a goal.
People that aren't familiar with Copilot.
So I do have GitHub Copilot preview. It's installed, and it's like, well, you're going to need a goal, right? Hold on. I got to see what else we need. We're going to need a goal net. I want to see, are we going to need a coach? Boy, would that be something? That might be it. I might have...
Did it run out?
I might have tired it. I might have said, nah, you're ready to play.
But dude, that was cool.
That was pretty amazing.
Really fun. Yeah.
I've seen some crazy things coming out of Copilot where I go, are you kidding me? I was writing documentation and I basically was saying like, so to begin, and it just put comma, install the software, which wasn't what I wanted to say, but it wasn't wrong.
Right.
Okay, so anyways, I've made some changes. I make a change. I've saved the change. I test the change.
Is a piece of equipment, but that's okay.
I test the change, and I say, well, you know what I like is at the end it's like goalie optional, right? I test the change and I say, yeah, I'm happy with the change. I'm super excited. I can't wait to get to lunch.
Right.
So if you're not familiar with Git commands, I'm going to check the status and say, oh, I have an unstaged file. If you use, whether you use, I don't care what IDE you use. I don't care if you use Visual Studio Code. This concept, and let's look at Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code's highlighting that a change has been made. I have to stage that change. Your IDE might call it staging. Your IDE might not. I don't know. But Git Kraken has a button here that says stage file. The way you do this from the command line is you use the add function. Now, a lot of people just say star dot, which means like just add everything that's been modified. But I'm going to go ahead and say index.html. You might notice that Git is pretty cool. At most command lines, including whether they're bash or whatever, I've seen that if I just start typing and hit tab, it goes and completes it for me, which is really nice. So I add and I say Git status, and now it turns green, which means that what it's telling you, I know it's not saying much, is it's saying you've staged this file. This is in a place that Git calls the index, not to be confused with index.html. You cannot open the index in any file explorer of any kind, any finder or anything like that. But you can see what's in the index by looking here. The index is what you're going to commit. You're going to commit this modified index HTML. So if I say git commit, and I am actually a fan of not doing commit messages right here, unless I'm in a big hurry, I'll show you why. I like setting up a Git editor. I happen to have Visual Studio Code set up. You can set up a Git editor. It can be your favorite editor. Visual Studio Code does some nice things, in my opinion. And what happens is Git actually creates this dummy file, this placeholder file, commit_edit message. And it says here, you put your commit here, and when you save and close this file, I'll go read it and I'll make that the commit. Now, why do I like doing stuff this way?
Wait.
Yeah.
Chris, do me a favor.
Yep.
You might have lost me there. So, okay. So instead of putting a commit message in.
Yeah. So
you normally you say, "Oh, I added 3 lines to the list, right? I added coach, right?"
So you're saying like maybe normally you do this. You say, "Here is my commit message."
Yeah, right. Okay.
Right.
So instead of doing that,
yeah,
you went and hit git commit, and then it says hint, waiting for your editor. So you told Git somewhere that you want to do something, right? Like it needs to know that, because you could just do git commit with no message, right?
You can, but I was hoping that would do it. Git config. I want to look at is this going to do it? No. Git config. Sorry.
Because this is like a Git, like, I don't know if this is meant to be part of the tutorial, but this is a cool tip right here. Like this whole way of doing comments seems quite different than what I'm used to.
I was just doing this earlier. Am I saying show origin? Am I wrong? Let me forget that. Yeah. So I know a lot of you may not be used to, why can't I see the Git config? That's really strange.
In the wrong folder?
Still have that file open? Wrong? Does that mess it up?
I'm sorry, what?
But you still have that file open in code?
Yeah, but
Meg has a comment in here. She said, earlier you were talking about naming the default branch and how GitHub changed from master to main. You set your default branch name in your git config file.
Cool.
Is that related to what you're trying to figure out, or is that just something different? Oh, no, I think that's just a different comment she's making. Okay.
No, but that's useful. Okay. So it's possible. It's possible. So let's see if I close that file, which I did. And so where are we at? We're still in this place. Why am I struggling here? I feel like earlier I was able to see the configuration. Do I have to say git config? Use the global config file. I just wanted to show you what was in the config, and it's fighting me. So, okay, well this is what a config file looks like. And a lot of people don't know about this file, which I totally understand. But see, and this isn't what I was looking for. This is not what I was looking for.
Tiwahoo says -- edit. I don't know if that helps you.
Yeah, I want edit, but I want the global config. Okay, yeah. But see, I'm not seeing the editor. I've set the editor.
-- global, but I think you did that already. I'm just reading the comments here.
Yeah. That's... So why don't I just jump to the docs? Weird how I'm having trouble with that. You can configure any editor that you like. I want to make it clear that you do not have to use. It's in the official docs. So this is in the VS Code docs, where they tell you, if you run this command, git config -- global core.editor code with the wait parameter, then that basically tells Git whenever somebody needs to supply me some more information, whether it's a merge or a rebase or whatever, open up Visual Studio Code, create a temporary file. When the user closes and saves that file, then act on that file.
Okay.
A lot of people don't do that. You do not have to do it with VS Code. You can use your favorite editor. Doesn't matter. Okay,
so then what happens is you do this git commit, but you don't, and it opens the editor, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so then, like, the workflow here, I'm confused. So what does the commit mean? The commit hasn't really happened yet.
No, it's saying in lieu of me doing -m and the message, I'm going to do it here.
Okay.
There's a reason I like this. And so what did I do again? I added to the list, added more equipment. So there's a standard in the Git world that this top line is your headline and lines after it are like description. Now,
so in the Git comment thing where you type M, right? You have I think you have a pretty limited set of text you can enter. Is that right? But you can't put sentences in there, can you?
You can. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
But
you could. But this seems much more robust.
I can do whatever I want. I can do this all day long. Now, it turned red. So we're going to talk about why it turned red. So why should you honor Visual Studio's warning not to type so much that it turns red? So it's been a while since I've actually looked at every single Git product in creation. But there was a time where even on GitHub, if you went past the 50 character mark, then what would happen is your headline would get truncated on GitHub, and it would get truncated on other terminals. And this was definitely a standard that was very early on, is keep your headline short, no longer than 50 characters, which I think isn't a bad idea anyway. But at the same time, then you'd go look on GitHub or you'd look on whatever source control system you're using, and it would be truncated. And then you can add more description by typing. The standard is to leave a line. You do not have to. But then you can start typing here. And again, you tend to not go past this mark that Visual Studio Code puts on the screen for you. So I kind of like that too. Like, I can just hit enter and keep typing. So
I love that.
We'll just say I added more equipment.
Comments here.
More hockey equipment is added to the list.
Oh, look at that.
This was supplied by our marketing team. Yeah, we'll go with team. Okay, cool.
So then what's it say below it? Please enter the commit message for your changes. Lines starting with pound will be ignored. That's just what they're showing you.
Yep.
And they're also giving you a handy. So it seems like the stuff with pound, which includes the changes to be committed, that's not part of your message, but they're kind of reminding you, right?
Yeah,
You're like, oh, these are the files you changed, right? Which is kind of helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm not trying to say you shouldn't use your favorite editor, but I like this. I like that it reminds me to keep things short and sweet. So I have to save this temporary file, and then I have to close it. And then if I rush back out to command line, it's going to say, okay, I got mad about something. I'm not sure why. Added more equipment, one file changed, 3 insertions. And if I go git status, I'm going to see that my branch is ahead of origin trunk. What the heck does that mean? By 1 commit. A lot of folks may understand that means that my local repository has 1 more commit on trunk than what's over in that golden important repository up on GitHub. And the terminology is your branch is ahead of origin trunk by 1 commit. That's the terminology Git uses. So
Chris, you're showing there's a lot going on here, right? You're showing some
there's a
really
ton
cool
that
stuff.
happened just with
I
the
gotta
commit.
tell you something. To the regular person, I think, like me,
Yeah.
I am still stuck on the fact that your Git comment is not just this headline thing, which I thought was the whole comment. Like, I didn't even know you could have more
Right.
underneath there. And
So
I
see
wouldn't
how
be
it looks
surprised.
here.
And I wouldn't be surprised if
Right.
I'm not, I hope I'm not the only one. Well, it would be nice if people knew that, but my guess is that other people are like me. And so, like, that was a tip within the tip. Like, first of all, you can have more than one line. Second of all, you can use Git to edit it. And third, I'm not Git.
Like
You can
you can use your
uh,
favorite editor.
favorite editor.
Yeah.
And third, you can have it configured the way you showed us how to how to configure that. There's
Right.
like a bunch of things happening at once there.
Yeah, Meg, I know you're right about Git config. I mean, you're right. She's right. She's right. She's like I probably did have that in a session that you came to, which it just goes to show, and this is good. I think everybody should understand. You don't remember this stuff forever. I'm lucky if I remember anything 6 hours from now, which is part of the reason why I write lengthy commit messages. I don't do it just for fluff. I do it to try to remind myself, like, what was I doing? And I'm not going to tell you everyone is that way. Not every message of mine. But a lot went on there, right? Like, I committed, and that turned into a big old ordeal and a big old discussion. And I used the Git add feature, which you may not use. You might just come in here in Visual Studio Code, stage it, commit it. You could do the same thing here in Git Kraken, which I will tell you that I do often commit straight out of Git Kraken, just because as long as I tell myself I still remember the command line for this, I'm fine with using the tool. So,
But if you were doing this commit through VS Code,
yeah, well,
remember how you showed that a second ago, if you don't mind, like,
right.
If you go back to that, like, it asks you when you make a commit there, it says, what's your comment, right? It gives you a little text box to put your comment in.
Right.
But I don't know how you put in that extra lines of stuff in there. Like, how do you separate that out? I didn't even know you could do that in there.
Like, how did I do it in Visual Studio Code?
No, if you were using VS Code without the commit message editor, like, let's say to do your commit, you were using a little Git plugin or whatever you want to call it.
I hear what you're saying.
Git extension.
Yes.
I don't even know that you could add. Yeah, like, normally what I do is I come in here and it says message, right? See that top box where it says enter the commit message?
Yeah, I understand. So let's see. So here we are. We have a change, which, Git doesn't really expose. Oh, I do have to stage this. Here's
You don't have to. You don't have to. If you type in the commit message,
it just does it.
And hit the checkbox, I think it will say, do you want to commit all your changes automatically or something like that? Which is sort of a just shortcut, I know. A little magic that it does. But my point is, Control Enter. See, like, that's just the title or whatever you called it. Like, I don't know where you enter the rest.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. I'm just curious. Added scoreboard. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try hitting Shift Enter.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're doing it right there. But it's not obvious. Like, if this works.
No, Shift Enter is... in a lot of different tools, Shift Enter is like, go to the next line without a character.
I do it all the time.
But who knows
all
that?
Kinds of things. Yeah.
Right.
But if you don't know that it's even a possibility to add another line, so I don't know if this will work or not. I don't know if this is going to screw up your demo, but it looks like it would work.
I think it's going to work. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and there are no stage changes.
Would you like stage changes? Okay. About, right?
Sure. Yeah. Please don't ever pick always and not see this message again.
Yeah. Right.
But you might, right? And then it's all over. Although I'm sure there's some setting where you can undo it.
Yep.
So, and sync changes things really bother me. So I'm going to just pretend that I'm not seeing that
stuff. Yeah, I know.
And come back out here. But yes, it did what you wanted.
Look at that, Chris. Oh, man, that's so cool. Because some people like to use the built-in tools and stuff like that. So that's cool. But this isn't even the demo you were starting to demo.
No. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Remember, we're supposed to use feature branches. What have I done wrong here?
Right. We committed to the trunk. That's what we said. We're not supposed to do that.
And, right? I want to come back to this, by the way. I want to bring up this one where Ternary operator says, yeah, I was joking above. I do have commits that are along the lines of saving progress, and then we squash later. I'm a big fan of doing what you just said, and even pushing that up to some temporary branch on that golden repo. And why am I a fan of it? Because if I go home on Friday, even though I might be in the middle of something and I honestly know it's buggy and it's not working and it's broken and it won't build, and then my laptop burns down over the weekend, right? Yep. So if you master some of the stuff that I hope we talk about, like I don't know if we're going to get to maybe like a good use of reset, then you can, or squashing, then you can do that stuff without worrying that there's going to be these commits that say like, went and got a Coke, went and had a sandwich, you know. I will be honest with you, when I'm really knee deep in something, I might throw a commit up that's like blah blah, because I know I'm just going to try it out, and then when I'm like, okay, I'm happy with it, let me go fix it. So this simple scenario is, oh no, I committed on trunk. And I actually have had some folks say, I didn't know what to do. I had a really good friend who said to me, I didn't really know what to do here. So you know what I did? I took index.html and copied it out somewhere. Then I deleted the folder and did a git clone and went back, and then I made the feature branch, and then I put my new index.html in, just to use my example, and then I committed it. And I said, man, you did a lot of work.
I've done that. Okay. I've totally done that.
Yeah. I said, wow, you did a ton of work. So here's where my patented concept, and I will say that I am quite humble about everything, and I will tell you that almost everything you hear coming out of my mouth is probably not invented by me. But when I was trying to teach Git, one day I saw a pad of Post-it notes on my desk. And I thought about how branches work. And I thought about taking those Post-it notes and having a Git class where I wrote commit hashes on a whiteboard. And then I stuck Post-it notes next to them. And I would say, that's what branches are. Branches are Post-it notes. And you can pick them up and move them at will. Now, because I don't want a trademark problem, I usually tell people they're sticky notes, right? So and I have had many people tell me, including somebody came into the elevator at Tech Bash and said like, oh, you're the Git guy, man. That sticky note thing is great. I think that's really going to help me. So I'm really proud of it. And I'm not saying that I'm the only person who's ever said it, just like calculus was invented in separate places at the same time. But it was something I came up with. Now, I'm sure other people use it. And please, everyone here, feel free to go off. You don't have to credit me. Branches are just pointers to commits. So because I know branches are pointers to commits, the repo thinks trunk is pointing here. That's where the sticky note for trunk is, up in GitHub. I know that because if I go back to GitHub, I can see that it even says added link to new directions page, F817DD7. Let me run back. I know I'm going a little quick, but F817DD. Yep. GitHub thinks it's here, or my GitHub repo. But my repo here on this machine has a sticky note called trunk pointing to 2 commits ahead. So all I have to do, let's think about sticky notes now. All I have to do is take my pad of sticky notes. What do I want to call this branch? Let's say I want to call it more equipment. Get a pen and write more equipment on a new sticky note and just stick it on the same commit. So think about it that way. Okay, how do I do that? I create a branch. So I could, if I'm using Git Kraken, I could create, I'm not going to do this. I could right click here, say create branch here, and it's going to take a sticky note, use the words I want to use, write it on there, peel it off, and stick it right there on that commit. From the command line, that looks like this. Git branch more equipment. Here's another trick that I learned from Meg. We were having a conversation about, in one of his sessions, we were talking about underscores versus camel Kate. Oh no, what'd I do? Didn't mean to do that. Well, I'll show you. No big deal. I don't even care.
It's just called more. That's okay.
We were talking about this versus this. And she said that she liked, or maybe I think even the Ruby community, I'm not sure about that. She can answer maybe if she wants to, that they like doing dashes. And she says, why? Because then you don't have to hit shift. And I'm telling you, from that moment on, I switched. Me personally, I switched from the moment she said it. So simplicity, I love learning from the community and from our friends, right? So I've actually now created
2 branches. Wait,
I've created 2 sticky notes. You're right. Yeah.
So which is,
let's go back and look.
A sticky note on the other? Yeah. Like, what does it look like?
They're all here pointing to the same commit. That's okay. Sticky notes, I could put doop, 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 right? I could put 100 on there. That's okay. But now that I've put the commit, the sticky note that I really meant to, more equipment, the feature branch name, now that I've peeled it off and tacked it to the commit, now I can use reset to pick the sticky note for trunk, peel it off, and move it back down. Now, there's a couple ways I can do it, but let's talk it through.
Hang on, because I want to go slow, because there's some people that are watching that know this stuff, and they're following along great. They're like, yeah, Chris, gospel, baby, preach it, right? And then there's people like me that are going like, okay, slow down here. Slow your roll, buddy. What? So you've got 3 sticky notes there. One says trunk. You've got, or is that not really a sticky note? The trunk, you know.
Oh yeah, they all are. These are all sticky
notes.
They're
all sticky notes. Yeah, they're all the same thing. Okay, so we got 3 of them. You're going to leave the 2 in place, and you're going to move the one that says trunk somewhere else, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to move it. What I want to do is I want to sync it back up with Origin's trunk, right?
Yep.
So we got the answer. And this is correct, but let me tell you, and it's not, I want to say, most importantly, Kurglow is right. He's right. But I kind of like teaching it a slightly different way, because I think it makes reset more powerful for like you're saying, Andy, to understand what's going on. He says, do a to summarize, do git reset head ~1. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm currently on the trunk branch. What does it mean to be on a branch? It means that it's your current branch. It means that it's the current sticky note that Git is going to move when you commit. It's going to create a new commit, peel it off, and slap it on the new commit. You're making a deal with Git when you're on a branch, when you've checked out a branch, that's the sticky note that Git's going to move up as you keep committing. So since it's the current sticky note, the current branch, I can also, when I use Git Reset on it, I'm also telling it, peel this thing off and move it where I tell you to move it.
So let's hang on there for a second, because what you just said is really interesting. I think most people, novice Git users or intermediate Git users, whatever we are, right, think of the change. If I make another change to this branch, right, then I'm changing the content that's on that like the sticky note is, or what you're calling like the label, this label of trunk, right?
Yep.
You think of it as like that's a pointer to this spot, and I can add more files on top of it.
Right.
But what you're saying is that's not really what it is. The changes come in. We're moving the sticky note each time.
Yes.
You move that note to the top of the top of the list each time.
To the commit that we just made. Yes. So whenever I make a new commit,
you know what? Though you can tell that because it doesn't say trunk on the one below it, right? It says trunk at the top one, right? That one doesn't have the sticky note.
Right.
Edit scoreboard has the sticky note, and it even shows that little pointer. That's the tape, right?
Right.
So that's great. That's really cool.
All a branch is a pointer to one commit. That's it. It is not the history. Git can figure out the history by walking backwards and just looking what are the parents. Git Kraken illustrates that in a way that's really nice that I hope we can get to. So
if I stop asking questions,
no,
you might get
it's
to
fine.
It,
so I have 3 sticky notes pointing to this commit, and you're going to notice I use this terminology because I want you to stop thinking of this being 3 different branches, like 3 different branches on a tree. It's not.
Yeah.
It's one line of commits that has 3 sticky notes pointing to one commit.
Yeah.
Stop thinking of it as 3 different branches. So I'm going to peel this one off, my local trunk, which Git Kraken identifies with this little laptop looking thing. And I'm going to just pick it up and plop it right back on this one so it's tied up with origin, which is just a fancy word for what's up in GitHub, with its trunk. I can do that a couple ways. I could right click here and say reset trunk to this commit. And just because I'm not worried about losing anything, I could say, look, also reset all the files to be exactly the way they were at that commit. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go to command line. For those of you who know command line, this is why I like Git Kraken. The verb in the menu matches the command line. It's 1 for 1. There's no magic. So just to confirm, Git status, I am on my local branch trunk. I am now going to move it using Git reset. Where do I want to move it to? We had a suggestion to say go back 1. That's the fancy terminology for going back 1, head ~1. But I kind of like showing people, why don't you go back to origin trunk? I think this is easier to understand. Why don't you set your local trunk, pick up that sticky note, and put it where origin trunk is?
Yeah.
That's one way to do this. Another way to do it, that's a good one. It's a good way. Another way to do it is to say, what's this commit hash again? F817DD. Can you pick up that sticky note and put it at F817DD?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, same effect. I'm going to add
It seems less magical than head tilde. Like, what does that mean? But this is like, oh, that's another pointer, and I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, it means start at head, go back 1. Because I could do start at head, go back 2, start at head, whatever, right? I'm going to pick up that sticky note. I'm going to rip it right off, and I'm going to plop it down on F817DD, and I'm going to do that. And you get this fancy stuff. Head is now at F817DD7. And what does that mean? I don't even know. Let's go look at it in Git Kraken. And we're all is right with the world. Right? Trunk now matches up. You do not have to throw your repo away. Copy index out. I did it in 1 command. Well, actually, I'm sorry, 2 commands. First, I made the new branch, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I was telling my buddy, right? Was like, dude, you did a lot of work, and all you had to do was, branch and then reset, and boom, you're done.
Now, you said hard, dash hard.
Right. Yep.
Can you remind us, like, what is that again? Because you sort of said it quickly here, but I don't understand what the difference between keep all changes and discard all changes. Because I'm thinking to myself, wait, I don't want to discard all the changes. Is that going to delete? I'm just telling you what I would maybe think. Wait, is that going to delete more equipment, like the added scoreboard, added more? Is that going to discard those changes? That sort of sounds like it might do that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be scary. So hard means while you're ripping up the sticky note, I shouldn't say ripping up, while you're peeling it off and placing it on this new commit, I also want you to make my folder look like that commit's contents. That might be deleting some stuff. It might be changing some files. It's like going back in time. And that is what I want. Right? I mean, if I want to go back to scoreboard, all I got to do is check out more equipment. And once I check out more equipment, Git's going to say, well, I better update the files so that you're up to date with this commit.
So hard is it says discard changes, but isn't it really like doing
it's reset all
trunk?
It's reset all is what it is.
But it's not doing a checkout. Like it's
so see, checkout, the word checkout, you're going to find that I don't think about checking out very often. I think about what is the branch, sticky note, and commit that I'm on. And I am now on this commit. This is head. If I were to commit right now, it would be a new commit pointing backward to head, and it would start diverging from the other commits. Right? Does that make sense?
No.
So wait. Rich, did you want to say something? Because I've been...
No, not yet. I do have a comment though, but go ahead.
So So say it again if you could, Chris.
So what I did with a git reset hard is I said, take the sticky note I'm on, trunk, peel it off, slap it on this commit. And since I said hard, I want you to take this commit, the state of the repository as of this commit, make my folder look exactly like it. That means throw away changes, throw away differences. That's a better term. Throw away any differences. If something had to be deleted, delete it. If something has to be added, add it. Whatever. Just sync it up.
Wait, let me see if I understand. If you didn't say hard,
yes, there's two other ways.
If I went back and did a status, it would say, well, you're on the trunk. I think, I don't know what it would say, but you're on the trunk, but you have 2 file changes that aren't staged, or maybe they're staged, maybe they're not. I don't know. It's probably not staged, right? But that's what you're saying, right? It would just say you've got changes here if you want to make it. So that's really not helping.
Let's try it. So I did a quick reset back.
Oh my God.
So they're all 3 of them are in one place. So let's run that command again.
Yeah,
Git
this is
reset
good. This is a good way to show it.
With soft. Let's do soft. Okay, I'm not going to go back to Git Kraken yet.
Yep.
I think you trust me that when we go back to Git Kraken, we're going to see the sticky notes peeled and moved.
Oh, yeah.
But what's going on here? Let's take a look.
Status, right? Yeah.
Oh, index has been modified.
But it is green. It is green, not red.
Because it's been staged.
It
has been staged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what soft does is soft says, don't touch what's staged and don't touch the files in the folder. Do nothing to the index. That not to be confused with index HTML. Do nothing to the staging area. Do nothing to the files in your folder. And so now let's go back to Git Kraken. And Git Kraken's like, do you want to commit a change, buddy?
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Yeah.
So that's how it thinks
we're back where we were a few minutes ago,
right.
sort of, so to speak.
And so let me go ahead and reset again so that we can do this one more time. And we will use the third most confusing option that I've probably used in my career twice, which is mixed.
Mixed. Oh, God.
Mixed unstages stuff in the staging area.
Yep.
But it leaves your files alone. So you are probably expecting some red text now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I don't know if mixed is it. Talk about terminology. Like I like to get the names right. Mixed feels like the wrong way of describing that.
Yep.
But but that's okay. You know?
Right.
It's
right.
all
It's just how Git calls them. I totally get it, and that's why people get confused and scared and nervous. I totally understand.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So
yes.
You're using Git Kraken, and it's easy to see in Git Kraken where the commit ID comes from. It was just in the command line. How would I know what that commit ID is so I could do the reset and point it back to the right number?
So we could use Git Log. And what Git Log does is it'll say like Git Log is a little harder to use. Why? Because Git Log is not going to fork as you have multiple parents. It goes in chronological order, and that can get confusing when you get to the multiple parent section. GitHub's log also looks this way. That's why I tend to use Git Kraken. But I could say like, oh, I need to get back. See, I didn't even get far enough, so I'm going to hit enter a little bit. I think I forget what was the commit I wanted to get back to. I'm sorry.
So we've already passed it. It's up front.
Oh, it was up front. It was
it's
up
up
higher.
a bit. Yeah.
Oh, I've already moved back to it.
I've
already moved back to it. Let's set that situation up. So first of all, let's close out. Let's close out that, and let's come back here and reset to this commit hard. And now let's go. Let's do a Git Log. And I would basically say, I can hit enter a couple times to see a little bit more. And I would say, this is what I want. I want to get back here. I want to get back to origin trunk. So
yeah, the information's here, but the user experience is not as
not
beautiful
optimal.
as it is with a tool. You know,
it's not optimal.
And
go ahead.
Just one last thing related to that, right? So the number you see in Git Kraken was only the first 7 digits, or 7 digits.
Right.
Is that all I need? Is it some subset of that, or
generally
do I have to grab the whole commit number?
Generally, you only need enough for Git to be able to see that it's unambiguous. You're going to see that 6, 7, 8 is usually good enough. You can grab the whole thing. It doesn't matter. Git just needs to know not once in a blue moon, and I'm not even sure if it's ever happened to me, unless I do something silly like, say, Git Reset 5. Then it might be like, come on. I got a bunch of those. If you want a nicer view, I kind of like this view. Some people will make an alias so that they don't have to type all that pretty formatting. Git Log is extremely powerful. I should really get this into the chat, right? So pardon me while I
Ternary operator is putting in something about making the Git log nicer.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if
there's definitely some good stuff there.
That great chat tonight. People are really like in the
thanks for all the
conversation
tips.
with us.
They're awesome. And definitely I mean, everything that's being said, I wish we'll have to make sure we get them into like YouTube comments and stuff too. But you might be all hearing that echo, but that's what I just used. I used it, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff, whatever you'd like. I like, we didn't lose the stream, did we?
I don't think so.
No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. I like this view just because I kind of like how it starts to show you some of the pathing, and it's more compact. But I will tell you, I live in here when I want to look at the commit graph. So anyways, I know it took us a long time to do it. But with a reset command hard, I am most of the way to where my colleague wanted to be. I've created the branch I wanted. I've picked up this sticky note, moved it back, and then all I have to do now is just go commit this, and I'm happy. Nobody else in the company knew that I goofed, right?
Then you would delete that more,
and I can delete more
sticky note, right? Yeah.
What
so when you commit that more equipment, it should show it. But that's not merged in yet, though. Then you would need to eventually merge that into trunk.
Well, so that's interesting. Yes, and we can talk about what that merge is going to look like. So let's go ahead and do some of this stuff. For one thing, a lot of Git IDEs, and Git Kraken's one of them, and I really wish that it wouldn't do this. I have had many colleagues say, well, I was going to get rid of this messed up sticky note that I didn't mean to create, but when I right-clicked and picked delete, I got this message that said, this is a destructive operation. And then I got a Slack call. I have a trick that I use to determine whether or not an operation is destructive. Git Kraken has this wonderful ability to hide branches. So if I hide the branch I'm about to delete and the graph does not change, then I know without a doubt that I am merely peeling off a sticky note and throwing it in the trash.
Oh, sorry. So when you hide the graph, if it doesn't change,
if I hide the sticky note and the graph doesn't change, then it proves to me, in a complicated graph, it proves to me that I'm just peeling the sticky note off and throwing it away. I'm doing nothing more.
Right. So if you did the same thing on trunk, you can't probably do that, right?
I can't because it's checked out.
Yeah, right.
So let's go ahead and hide it. Okay, great. Let's delete it. Let's see if I remember how to do this. I will be honest with folks in chat, because it's so easy to do, I tend to delete branches and Git Kraken, but I think
Chris is using a UI.
I think no, I'm on branch trunk. Well, heck, we don't want to be on branch trunk. We want to be on more. And then no, I'm wrong about that. I can't be on the branch I'm going to delete. So let's go ahead and check out trunk. Checkout is just a fancy term for like, hey, just move me to that sticky note. And I know like checkout means so much more to people. So let me say it's branch. I'm trying not to look, even though I'm sure people in chat are already. I think it's this. And I'm totally happy that people might be in chat saying like, here it is.
Meg has it with a capital D.
Branch more is not fully merged. Are you sure you want to delete it? Man,
She said that's forcing it, right? Capital D forces it.
Yeah, and it's like, thanks a lot, Git, for scaring people again. Because now that I've deleted this branch, and it even tells you, hey, here's the commit it was on. That's actually kind of nice. I like that. And I think these are new log messages. When I say new, within the last couple years, nothing changed. It's fine. Everything's fine. I just peeled that sticky note off and pulled it away. The next question is, if I got rid of more equipment. Oh, now that's interesting.
That's painful.
So Git considers commits visible. If you're a .NET or Java or JavaScript developer, or you're in a managed language with garbage collection, this might be a good analogy for you. Git considers a commit reachable if it can be walked back to from any branch or tag. So if we were to get rid of this sticky note, those two commits here can now not be walked back to from any branch or tag. So Git considers them not reachable, and they now become...
They're sort of orphaned out, right?
They're orphaned.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Who under the covers are they actually removed, or are they
Not
really
yet.
just like lost in space? You know,
They're not.
thing.
They're not removed yet. They can still be recovered, but Git does have a garbage collection feature, and probably sometime in the next 10 to 14 days, they will actually be cleaned out.
And that's interesting. So that really shows that the sticky note, again, kind of shows that the sticky note analogy, works, right? Because it's like, I'm just removing a sticky note, and again, if, think about it like a map or something like that. If you remove the pointer to something, nobody can find it. It's just out there and it's just lost,
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So you're really showing that you're just peeling off that sticky note.
Yeah, there are two new commands in Git that are intended to be alternatives to checkout: Git switch and Git restore. Git often has the reputation for the same command seeming to do multiple things. I totally understand why it seems that way. So Git switch switches branches, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember what Git restore does exactly. And the bad thing there is that it's so hard for me to untrain my muscle memory that I just like keep sticking with checkout. But I know I need to get better at this, because I do think that they are good alternatives that maybe people should be using, right?
Well, how would switch differ from checkout?
That's where I would have to, I would honestly probably have to take a look at the blog post to understand what's different.
Yeah. So we wanted to keep going with this anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about merging, which I think is interesting. Let's just say I went ahead and well, here's something, right? If I go over to GitHub right now, we're not going to see, I think this is a fair statement, Andy, is you probably already know we're not going to see this branch.
Right. I do know that.
If I go to branches, it's not here. Why isn't it here? I've actually, I have to admit, when somebody asked me, like, am I going to go see it in GitHub now after they committed, it gave me pause to think, like, wow, this is a lot more complicated than I give it credit for.
Yeah,
because you committed it. Why can't I see it in GitHub? Well, because my repository is mine. It's living just on this machine right here, and that's it. And I have to basically send it to the remote. I keep using that term remote. When you clone a repository by default, and this is magic, Git creates a remote by the name of origin, and it automatically sets up what they call a tracking branch with the default branch, which in my case is trunk. Well, origin doesn't know about more equipment. It just doesn't know. I have to tell it. Now, we've all, if you've been a developer for any length of time, you've probably done this and maybe not thought too much about it. So, what do you think I would do here?
Well, it's like git push, right?
Right. And let me tell you, I do this a lot, where I type git push, and because I know Git's going to help me, I'm just going to go ahead and type it, and then it's going to say, oh, hold on a second. You know why that didn't work? Because I'm on trunk.
Yeah.
So let's go check out more equipment. Okay, I've switched to that branch, and Git status is going to say, look, you're on branch more equipment. But it doesn't say anything about the branch being up to date or behind or anything, because there's no branch that it's tracking in association with this one. So if I say git push, it's going to say, hey, hold on a second. There is no branch that I call an upstream branch, which is also known as a tracking. I may be using the terminology slightly incorrectly, but you didn't tell me about any branch upstream at origin or at any remote that tracks this. You didn't tell me. So I think you probably want to say git push set an upstream at origin with the branch more equipment. That's probably what you want. And it's not wrong. It almost always is what you want when you see that message. It's what you're trying to do. Visual Studio Code called this publishing the branch. But what you're really doing is you're saying, hey, go push these commits and then tell remote. I'm sorry, not tell remote. Yeah, tell remote, here are some commits. You need to put the sticky note more equipment on this. And then I'm going to track what happens up there whenever you fetch, so that way we can start keeping stuff up to date with fetch and pull. There's a shorthand for set upstream, which is just you. And how do you ever know stuff like that? Well, if you look at the help, which if you're in Windows, the help brings up a web page.
Okay. It actually did that. I thought it failed.
And set upstream is the analogy of just -u. And Meg posted this in the chat. So a lot of times with these tools, and we see the same thing with like the .NET CLI, right? There is a longer version of a one-letter command. So you can use either, and they mean exactly the same thing.
Honestly, what I would be doing, right? Again, if I'm working probably in the IDE, is I'm just going to go, I thought you just do sync changes like at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
too.
you can do sync changes. Yeah, you can.
Is that like, no, is that little arrow, a cloud arrow, right straight down at the bottom of the screen to the right a little bit? Yeah, that thing. So that's called, I didn't even realize it's called publish branch. I basically just think of it as like, yeah, push it up to the cloud, yeah.
Yep.
Same thing, lots of ways to do it, right?
I think.
But it handles the upstream origin stuff automatically when you hit those buttons. You don't have to like tell it this.
There's also, you were right, there's a synchronized changes, and that's the one that looks like the arrows, 2 arrows in a circle. It's just a different logo, right? It's going to do
up and down.
It's not just going to push up. It's going to actually try and sync all the changes.
Meg probably just gave me a tip that I will use from now on, because I've actually never tried this. I found out accidentally that if you just say git push u origin, it'll name the remote branch after your local. So I bet you will never see me type the remote branch name again. Stuff like this, just you get this muscle memory and you don't think about it, and then we've got Meg here making things better for me. I bet you I'll never do it again.
By the way, tune in next week on the Dev Talk Show. We're gonna have Meg come and tell us how to really do all this stuff the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meg, I'm gonna get in trouble with Chris for that one, but
oh, wait a second. Oh, it yelled at me. Okay.
Meg's wrong.
Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna assume anything.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. And then nowadays it'll tell you things like GitHub. These are messages coming from the remote server. So GitHub is saying, hey, why don't you create a pull request by going here? I find that really interesting that when it says remote like this, these are messages coming from the server. So in any case, I love this one. Branch more equipment now set up to track remote branch more equipment from origin. And it's like, man, there's a mouthful.
But what's cool about this though, I talked before about how I'll just push that little button, right? But what's kind of neat is that this thing does give you the feedback. So you start to really understand exactly what's happening if you pay attention to those messages, right? You can ignore them, but if you read them, it tells you, okay, look what I just did. I just set the track or what I forget exactly what it said, but it told you what it's doing every step of the way, which is pretty pretty clear and pretty helpful,
Right.
for learning.
So you talked about merging, right? I am going to not create a pull request, just maybe so that we can play around with merging a little bit. I hope that this isn't a mistake. So there are two types of merges in Git. We talked a little bit earlier about a merge commit where you're bringing two vintages or two lineages of commits together. But what about this case? These are not two different paths. So this is a type of merge that Git calls. You have the option to create, and actually by default, Git at the command line will do what it calls a fast forward merge. What it says is, it says, hey, I don't see why I should create a merge commit. We're just going forward. If I pick up the trunk sticky note and move it up, I don't have multiple lines of commits to bring together in a harmonious way. Why don't I just pick up the sticky note and move it? And Git is going to show us that at the command line. It's going to say it. It's just not going to say it the way I did. So let's check out trunk. Git checkout trunk. So now I'm on trunk and I want to merge the changes from more equipment. So git merge more equipment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what Git says. Git says, I'm updating. Oh, I can fast forward. And that's its fancy terminology of saying, why don't I just pick up the sticky note and move it? What do I need to do that make one of these merge commits for? I don't see why.
Yeah, except visually,
it
doesn't look like you ever had a branch there, right?
Yeah, right. This is the default way that Git works by default. Why you might be a little confused, Andy, is the default way that GitHub and other systems work is they will create a merge commit anyway. So you can change that, by the way, in GitHub. You can change that setting for your repo. But I think I'm right about this. By default, it's going to make a merge commit. So I said that, but you probably want to see it in action. So let's move trunk back. See, Git reset in action again, right?
Yeah, man.
Just pick up that sticky note. No big deal. I do like that question that I think we'll get to here. So git reset to origin trunk. And let's see, did I do that wrong? No, fine, awesome. Now I want to merge, but there is a way, and I'm gonna have to double check. I think that the command is like, there's a way to force a merge. Git merge. Oh, I'm gonna feel terrible if I can't figure it out. No FF. Yes, no FF.
No fast forward. Yeah.
No fast forwarding. Create a merge commit in all cases, even when the merge could have been resolved as a fast forward. I never do this, so I don't say that in a derogatory way. I'm not 100% sure what this commit's going to look like. So let's do it, right? Let's say git merge. Let's merge. This is the more conventional way of thinking of it. Trunk is a branch on a tree, and more equipment's a branch on a tree. Although you saw that they're actually on the same lineage of commits. Let's bring them together. Let's say no, what was it? No FF, is that right?
No FF.
Okay, let's see what it does. It says merge made by the recursive strategy. I only vaguely understand what that means, but let's take a look at what it did.
Mm-hmm.
A little different, right? Yeah. It made a merge commit. Now, it is really two parents, right? One parent is here and one parent is here. But in order to kind of bring it all together, we're going to see that it created a merge commit that combined the changes. It had to.
But isn't that it feels more accurate to me though, right? Because otherwise, the way you had it before, it's like that more equipment didn't exist. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter, but it doesn't seem to show that like I had a branch and I merged it with the trunk.
So I think the reason why I don't go for that is because once you understand that the commit graph isn't really a tree of branches, you stop caring about Like, why do I care that this code came by one developer going this way? That developer could have just as easily squashed those 2 commits anyway.
Right. Maybe we could talk about squash, which is a topic that's come up a few times in the chat and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So most of the time, GitHub will do things this way. In fact, I'm pretty sure that if I went and created a pull request and blah and closed it, and I haven't changed any of the settings on that repository, it will probably, it will do that. So, Git from the command line will fast forward if it can. Most people, so here's the thing, most people don't know that there's even an option. Even some seasoned Git command line users may not know. And so other people might get mad at them and say, oh my gosh, do not use that. Do not use that. Everything by pull request. Everything must be pull request, right? So the pros and cons, and there are some really, really great questions that I want to get to, but we've got the pros and cons of merge commit versus fast forward. I will try to be very objective. I think it's a matter of your personal style and your team's personal style. If you think it's really important to see that like you really want to see that these commits started on some branch and then came back in, even though it just so happens the rest of the team, I guess, was having pizza, and so trunk never moved at all while you were working, which this does happen. You ever do the real quick bug fix? That happens. Then your source control system, because your team is probably using a pull request model, you're going to get a merge commit. Why do people like me like fast forwards? Because people like me spend a lot of time looking at this graph. And when it's cleaner, it's easier for me. This is a simple graph.
Your basic point, though, is who cares?
Right. My basic point is I don't care.
The bottom line is I merged it in.
Right.
And I mean, you can't really I guess you could undo everything somehow still, right? But
sure, I could.
You could, right? So, like, what's the difference? It's interesting.
So I will tell you very quickly, this might go over some people's heads, but to answer this question, is it bad that I never use merge and always use Rebase? I'm a big fan of Rebase. I constantly use Rebase for 2 purposes. One, that's a simple way of looking at it is squashing commits, but I actually prefer, I pretty up my commits. I'll even decide, if I want to tell a story about what I did, that this commit is this change and this commit is that change and this commit is that change. And they're very organic and meaningful changes so that somebody later, or even myself, can remember what and why I did. But I also use Rebase almost always, without exception, to time travel my branch so that I can pretend that I just started on the code this morning and then merge it into main so it's a nice clean line. I bet you I'm one of the few people that do it, and there are even people who get very angry about that and think the purpose of source control is to record exactly what happened when. And I think that used to be the purpose of source control back when we had Visual Source Safe and a reserved checkout model where when you checked out a file, it was locked and no one else could use it and touch it and you went on vacation. We don't use that model anymore, for better or for worse. We now use what's called unreserved checkouts, which means both Andy and I can change the same file and consequences shall come later. And in that model, my opinion is that it is less important to know when and where and how a file was changed, and more important that the change is recorded. So I feel like the source control system becomes a record of what you shipped and what you built, and less a record of the code, which is a statement that we'd probably have to dig into one time.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy, and I know that's a little in the weeds. So
well, let me just say, Chris, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm just gonna spill the beans here, out in public here. But Rich is already typing in the chat, in our internal chat, hey, maybe we should be doing part 2 next week on this. There's a lot of interesting topics that I don't know, put Chris on the spot here, but this, no, I'm not saying we need to wrap up tonight, but I'm saying there seems like a lot that we could talk about here, all these little subtopics.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get very far, right? We didn't even get we have pushed this branch up to GitHub, right? And
Okay.
this might be the last thing we do tonight. We pushed this branch up to GitHub. We know that because we see the little GitHub symbol. We did the whole push with the U thing. I actually, if you might have noticed, I actually killed off that merge because I reset, and I never did push that commit. I never pushed that merge, that trunk. After I merged more equipment and made the merge commit or did whatever, I never pushed that. So GitHub doesn't know about it.
Oh, you never pushed it. Okay.
I never pushed it. And I kind of did that on purpose because what I want to do is I want to show you GitHub understands that because we did the git push under -u, GitHub understands that there's a new branch. My local repository understands, but our buddy Joe has not gotten to do any work tonight. And
oh my God, you actually have a Joe Janko machine here.
Let me see if I remember. I find it very difficult to demonstrate 2 users working with Git and Git without actually having 2 users working in Git. It's just extremely difficult because Git, like the Git config describes what your machine is about, right? So let's take a look at what this guy, Jay Janko, thinks is going on. Well, he's got a little utility Git graph, which, let's see, if I refresh it, I don't think it's going to do anything. Yep. And he does, like, it doesn't say anywhere. There's trunk, but it doesn't talk about more equipment anywhere. Like, why?
That's a good question. Well, I guess because it's not going to the server and looking for it, like you'd have to tell it to go.
Yeah,
Like,
so
shouldn't it know that there's a change out there on? I'm surprised it doesn't automatically say, well, I know you don't have it here locally, but I went and checked the server for you.
right.
Find out you're behind.
So if you're watching and you're a little confused because you say, but my Git tool would show me it instantly. Many Git tools, and Git Kraken is one of them. And this Git graph and Visual Studio Code is another one. And Visual Studio IDE is another one. Have a setting to fetch in the background every so often. I turn that setting off, partially for teaching reasons and partially because it doesn't represent how Git really works. I don't hate the setting. If you like it, please use it. But I turn it off so that way, when somebody asks me, can you tell me how fetch really works? My system hasn't already auto-fetched everything. Okay, so what is fetch? Fetch and pull are 2 different commands that you might be a little familiar with.
Oh, fetch versus pull. Okay, now I see where you're going with this. Yep.
So fetch does not change your local branches, but it does go out to the remote and say, so what's gone on out in your neck of the woods? And it actually does go and get all the commits. And it says, origin trunk got a couple new commits. Cool. Pull, which is a command I do not use often. Actually, I use it every day. I don't use it. I have a rule that I use with git pull. Git pull does a fetch first and then automatically pulls the commits, and that scares me. I would much rather know that my pull is going to be a fast forward before I just go and take a bunch of commits on trunk that are all over the place. Now, most of the time, a git pull on the main or trunk, 99.9%, I very rarely see this otherwise, is going to be a fast forward. But what I don't want is I don't want to be in a situation where I'm some number of commits ahead and some number of commits behind and pull that, because Git does a merge under the covers without you knowing, and then you'll go push that back, and you know what your next colleague has to do? They have to do some kind of funky sync, and eventually someone's going to get a nasty merge conflict, and they're not going to know who started it.
So
I
think this is what.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of those examples where you just said like a whole bunch
of stuff, yeah.
And I'm like, wait, fast forward. I sort of remember what you said about fast forward merging, but like there's a lot to unpack in that statement of yours.
And it's probably too much. So we need the example, right?
Yeah, I think we kind of do. And it sounds all like it makes sense to me. Like I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I agree.
Without like the concrete example, could that be next week's? Maybe.
Well, so I have one that I think was
Oh,
going to
yeah.
lead to it, but I'll be able to spend a little more time and make sure it does. So let me git fetch, and git fetch tells me, oh, hey, look there's a new branch, more equipment. That's cool. There's a new branch called more equipment. Now, I don't have that branch locally. I can't simply reset to it. And let's go take a look at why I know that. If I look at git graph, I can see that it's telling me, look, there's an origin / more equipment, and it's got a couple more commits than trunk does. But I haven't made a local version of that branch yet, right? So I don't have to do much to do that. I don't have to do much. I just have to do git checkout more equipment.
You don't need to pull more equipment.
No. Because
That's
what git
interesting.
checkout's going to do is git checkout's going to say, I can write a sticky note to track that remote branch. I can do that. Let me just do that for you, in fact. Just let me write a sticky note, more equipment, and that's what it's saying on that line when it says branch, more equipment set up to track remote branch, more equipment from origin. It's like, why don't I just write a sticky note, plop it on the same commit, and you're good. You're ready to go. But I will switch to that branch, so now you have the file, like your file system looks the same.
So fetch pulled the stuff down.
Whoops.
It really was on your machine. It's just that there was no sticky note.
Yeah, right. My mental model, although this isn't actually correct, my mental model is that fetch doesn't bring stuff down and pull does. As
Right.
you
That's
just
kinda what I
pointed out,
thought.
Andy, that's not technically correct, but I like it as a mental model.
Yeah. So, but you didn't do pull. You did a fetch,
Mhm.
and then you did a checkout. Now, if I did a pull instead, well, I don't know.
I don't know what would happen. I'm not sure. Let's see. If I check out trunk and then I delete, I might not have to do the capitalized one.
Oh, so you're basically killing it from your local again, but that won't affect it on the server.
Look how I call
More
it.
checkout. More equipment.
Okay, let's go see what it looks like now. This
And
is
all you've
where
done
we
is
were.
delete the local copy of it, right?
The
So it
local
still says
sticky note
origin.
got peeled away.
Yep.
So
You make it all seem so simple. I'm just deleting, moving sticky notes, you know?
I don't know what this means exactly because, see, I'm not checked out on it. No. What this is going to do, what git pull more equipment is going to do, is it's going to pull the commits from more equipment onto trunk because that's the branch I'm on right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
No,
see, I'm on trunk. And by saying git pull origin more equipment, I'm saying, can you go get those commits and merge them here into trunk? Which is something you probably don't do very often, but you can, and Linus would have been all for it. He would have said, yeah, that's the power of pull. Awesome. So I will tell you my mental model. My mental model is let's fetch, which I think I've already done, so it's not going to really do anything. It's going to be like, yeah, nothing to do because we actually fetched earlier. We found out that there's a new branch and that it's on some commit, and then you can go look at a nice tool like this and see exactly where it is. That's why I like tools like this. And then I can just say, there's many things I could do here. Here's something that'll probably blow your mind, right? Is I could simply take this commit 1939. I don't know why I would do this. And I could say branch more equipment 1939. I could do that.
What the heck does that do? Wait.
Well, I'm creating a sticky note called more equipment and I'm putting it at that commit. Now, I don't think this is very helpful.
You deleted more equipment, so you didn't have it, right? So you just changed what more equipment is, right? Or is that the same?
No, I got rid of that local branch, remember? So I added it here. Now, I thought what I thought might happen is it might not create a tracking branch, but I could be wrong. That actually might have been smarter than I was. Let's go take a look. When I go check it out, remember, checking it out is telling Git, I want you to treat my future commits as though they're happening with this sticky note. So when I say switch to branch more equipment, I've never tried this before. On branch more equipment, nothing to commit, working tree clean. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure if Git knows. It might. Like if I tried to commit something, it might have set up a track, and I don't know the command to double check that. Somebody might. I probably wouldn't do that. My way of working is git checkout more equipment, because then I get this confirmation to say, hey, I'm making a sticky note called more equipment, and that's going to allow you to fetch and pull from Origin's more equipment should that get updated, and you'll be able to push up there. Like all those things get enabled.
Yeah, but if you checked out more equipment and then did a pull,
I don't need to, though. I don't need to.
You don't need to, but if there's more changes, once you're on that branch, if
Yes.
there's more changes up
Then
on
I
the
could
server,
pull them, right?
then you could do pull.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't do that. You would still do a fetch.
First, I would do a fetch to see what changed, and if it was on my feature branch, I would be like, whoa.
Who's
Why?
changing my feature branch? Yeah, right.
In fact, I might, let me tell you what would really happen in that case. First of all, I would go straight to GitHub or whatever and look and see what happened. Then I would go talk to that developer, unless I already knew about this, and say, why did you commit on my feature branch? I'm not mad. I just want to know why. I want to figure out if I should take those changes. And if I shouldn't, then I'm going to force push over right on top of it and go back to work. And I'll tell the other developer, now look, if you really want these, let's give them another sticky note. And then we can, they're saved. But I want to get back to work, and I want to stick with my lineage of work. Now, to be honest with you, just yesterday I pushed on someone else's branch because the two of us paired up.
I was just going to say, a lot of times people work together.
Yeah.
They may have a branch, a feature branch, and each one of them might have, like, let's say the feature is called X, you know.
Right.
But then I branch off X for my Andy X, and you branch off X for Chris X. But I got to merge it back in there, and you're going to have to take those changes, right? There's nothing wrong with working on the same branch.
That's probably not a scenario I would ever find myself in. However, let's say it truly is the same branch. My colleague and I pair on something I'm doing on my branch, and he goes ahead and says, here, let me show you, pulls the branch down, makes a change, commits it. That's cool. I'm not surprised by that commit. When I pull that commit, it's not a shock to me. But if I were to come in the morning and fetch my own feature branch and see commits on it and not know where they came from, I would be like, that, which has never happened to me, by the way. I would be like, what happened here? Like, this can't be right. If we sat down and worked together, it's not going to be a surprise to me. That's not a surprise. It's like, yeah, we work together. And Andy, instead of me, because sometimes people will actually say like, well, do you want to push this? Do you want me to email it to you? No. Just push it. Just push the commit. And then I'll go ahead and pull it. And now we're up to date again. Again, it's another one of those things you pointed out, Andy, that would be better by example. Because certainly that's real and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's a great way to work together. So, that's just the difference between fetch and pull. I don't tend to pull, but let me show you one other thing. Let's see. The last thing we're going to do, I think, before we head out is let me go check out trunk as this user. I want to get this user thinking that trunk is up to date and that all is right with the world back here on added link to new directions. I want that. And then I want to come here and I want to do what we did earlier, Andy. I want to merge trunk. I want to merge more equipment into trunk. But I actually don't have to do anything because, see, this is a fast forward merge and I can see that. So why don't I just take trunk and reset it here? I mean, who cares, right? It's the same exact thing. Pick up the sticky note, plop it here. That's exactly the same as a git merge with a fast forward. Exactly the same thing. Picked up the sticky note, moved it there. I'll just use reset instead. So now I can push that. So let's push that. Let's check the status real quick. I'm ahead of Origin's trunk by 2 commits. That checks out. I'm ahead by 2 commits. Let's push. Now it's going up to GitHub. And these match. So now let's go check that out in GitHub land. Branch is up to date with trunk. Let's change to trunk. We can see that it's the latest stuff, added scoreboard. But what does it look like for poor Joe? Joe doesn't know. Poor Joe.
Wait,
He's
Joe
about to
doesn't
find.
know what.
He doesn't know that trunks changed. Look at trunk says added link to new directions page. It doesn't. It's not all this stuff added scoreboard. It's not there. Origin's trunk is still here because he hasn't fetched.
Oh.
So he doesn't know that trunk has been updated. I mean, sure, he could wake up and with his coffee, he could look at GitHub and go, oh, wow, look at that. Trunk really moved. Or his tool might auto fetch for him, which a lot of tools do. Your tool might do that. So let's go do a fetch so we can see that trunk moved on. Let's do that. Sorry, wrong terminal. I need Joe's terminal. Git fetch. So Joe is going to see, oh, wow, look at trunk. Trunk changed. Somebody added some commits to Origin's trunk. I wonder what that looks like. Oh, wow. Origin's trunk. In fact, can I get rid of some branches? I don't want to see more equipment. I don't want to see these. I just want to concentrate on... Oh, wait, I'm picking the wrong ones. I just want to concentrate on these. Oh, I can't easily get rid of those? Oh, I was hoping I could. Okay. Anyways, no worries. Look, trunk. It's got 2 new commits. So now I fetched, but I could pull. And all pull's going to do is a fast forward merge. That's all it's going to do. Git will even say that in its commentary. Pull is just another term for merging. So I actually don't need to use pull. I can say git merge, because I'm on trunk. Let's merge origin trunk. Oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I can't do that. Do I really have to pull? Maybe I do. I could also reset to it. And why not? I mean, it's just picking up the sticky note and moving it. Oh, I picked the wrong... I'm on the wrong terminal. Did somebody just say that? Oh, no. Okay.
No.
Let's... I'm on the wrong terminal. So let's try git merge origin trunk. Now, Git's going to look at that statement and say, well, merge, they're on a straight line path. All I have to do is pick up the sticky note and move it here. I'm not using that noFF. And it's like, yeah, what? Merge? Why don't I just fast forward? That's silly. Why would I merge? And sure enough, they now match up. Let me see if I can reset it back very quickly. Reset current branch to this commit. Hard. Yes, reset. So we'll show one more thing. When I say git pull, my belief is we're going to see the exact same text. The exact. Because it's going to say, why should I merge anything? Why don't I just... So let's do git pull. And Git's going to say, yeah, what? Why don't we... So do you see what I'm telling you? I'm telling you that this is an alias for that. That's what I'm really telling you. That merge pulling is nothing more than do a fetch, then do a merge. Consequences, who knows? And I tend to be more deliberate. I tend to fetch, take a quick look at what happened, and then I will decide. Maybe I'll just pull. Oh, it's a fast forward. I'll just pull. I very rarely do this for anybody that's wondering, but what I want you to understand is a pull is just a term to go merge the branch you're tracking without typing that out. And the reason I think it's kind of nice is as you're beginning to develop a mental model of Git and sticky notes and all these things, is to know what's really happening means that when you do go back and use your favorite Git IDE, it's not going to surprise you what it's doing. When you click that sync button, it is doing a fetch. First it's doing a fetch, and if you're ahead, it's going to do a push, and then it's going to do a pull. It might even have to do a merge to make it all happen, and that's why I don't use those sync buttons. I just think it's too much. But you got to get to a certain level of a mental model before you're comfortable using anything other than the sync button, just so you can get some work done.
This is awesome.
But yeah, wow, we had a long show.
Yeah, you know what? We have a long show. We didn't get to as much as we wanted.
No, we didn't even get to merge conflicts.
We had a lot of comments.
Yeah.
We had a lot of chat going on. So, and this is great. You know, thanks to everybody who's joining in on the conversation with suggestions for Chris, questions for Chris, like everything, right? Chris, putting you on the spot here, but can we do some stuff next week?
Yeah, we can. I mean, there's no reason we can't continue. And, you know, the trick is to say, for every one of us, there is the scenario that you've seen before and you didn't know what to do. Hopefully we run into a couple more of those. I think setting up something that I know is going to be a merge conflict is a good one. I actually like the idea of setting up a scenario where, have you ever tried to check out a branch and Git starts complaining about how, oh, you can't check out until you stash your changes, and you say to yourself, now, why did you tell me that this time, but you didn't tell me that this other time when I know I had changed files? There is a reason.
Oh, and that's a good one to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that happens to us a lot.
I'd like to add to the list some terms that came up today a couple times, again in the chat, but like squash. Right. Don't answer it now. I know you're tempted to say, well, Andy, let me tell you what squash is, but I'd rather you don't.
That's another hour.
Right?
So no, I'm not very tempted.
Oh, is it? Okay. It is complicated. Okay. And a little bit more about rebasing and stuff like that. And like good uses of rebasing or something like that. I don't know. It seems interesting. Like a little, those would be good topics, I think. And I know you had some other stuff you wanted to show anyway tonight that we didn't even get to, right?
So I figured that we would fly through some stuff and that would be like, oh my gosh, we're not going to have enough to do. So I have a sample where Joe creates a feature branch like a good little developer. And then he does some work on the feature branch like a great little developer. But the rest of his team does a bunch of work too. And then when he goes to merge it back in, he's got this huge conflict and it doesn't make any sense because it was so simple. Like,
right.
Why?
Right.
I made one change. Why is it telling me I've got 7 files conflicted? And how you deal with that without crying and wanting to find a new line of work and all that stuff. It actually happened to me recently where I changed 3 files and I worked so hard on these commits because I was changing 3 different types of things and I wanted to remember that I did A, B, and C. I even rebased in order to rewrite the commits and great commit. I was so happy. And then when I went to create the pull request, I go up to Azure repos and it tells me, oh, sorry, you got a merge conflict and I can resolve it for you. So I let it. And then it told me that my PR was 247 file changes.
You changed 3 files.
And so I abandoned the pull request, figured out why, and then submitted a new one that was just my 3 changes plus the 1 conflict resolution. So that way, at least I could write in the PR to the reviewers, like, hey, this 4th file, I know it's not part of the PB of the issue, but there's a conflict over in trunk. So I have to resolve it here. Otherwise, this PR is never going in. And a colleague was like, why did you do it that way? And I said, because you should have seen the PR. And you know what's crazy about it is a lot of colleagues kind of said like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes. I'm like, I know it happens sometimes. And I know that I took this extra effort and I'm not expecting that everyone does it. I know it's a lot of work, but like, I want to have a good code review, you know? I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So,
you know, here's another idea. As you were saying that, like this kind of scenario is coming into my mind. And you just said something else too, which is where I was headed, which is like, talk about code reviews and pull requests and stuff like that. So, like sometimes you're making a change, right? I need you, Chris, or Andy, you asked me, Andy, I want you to go in and add this new feature, right? I want to have a button and you're going to, and we're going to, this button is going to do, X, Y, and Z, right? So I'm going in and I add the button and I'm coding up X, Y, and Z. And when I'm in there, I go, oh, you know what, man, they got some naming convention error, mistakes on a whole bunch of variables. So I start renaming stuff, right? And then I go, oh, I don't like the way you formatted some of these files. So I start reformatting files, you know what I mean? And then, I'm going to commit all this stuff and you're going to get a pull request. And all you really want to know is, wait, Andy combined like all the stuff that he shouldn't have combined, right? And you really want to check on that feature I did as a separate code review from the, all this other like sort of incidental stuff that I did. And I think this happens a lot, right? Like we get carried away, we're in there. And I have a feeling based on like these sticky notes and stuff like that, that we could sort of split that stuff out again. But I don't know if that's so easy to do.
Yeah, it's not that hard actually. So
maybe that's a scenario we could talk about because I think that happens a lot.
right. I think what you're saying is I have a feature branch. I'm happy with what I've done, but now I kind of wish it was 2 separate PRs.
Yes, exactly. I want it to be 2 separate PRs because because the code review is too complicated for whatever reason, really, you know.
Yeah, I've done that. I've also gone so far as to say, even though I want to change the formatting of something, I don't want to mix a commit that has a functional change with one that has a mere cosmetic change.
That's what I'm talking about.
So,
exactly.
Right. Now, I'm only talking about commits, not actual PRs. So I might, at the bare minimum, make sure that they're separate commits so that even the commit can say no functional change, cosmetic only. But I do agree with you. That does happen where you're down the path of something. And as a team, you might even decide, like, we should have really made this 2 separate issues. But how do you deal with that in terms of, like, you've already gone down this, you've already created these pathways. Can you, and you know, how do you resolve it? And I'm not trying to say, how do you, Andy, resolve it? I bet you teams do lots of things. They're like, well, let's just go ahead and finish this PR. And then when it's done, we'll close both issues. Well, then you didn't actually split the issues, right?
Right. Yeah,
so I've been there. I've been there. Yeah. But I do agree with this. This is the short answer. This is the short answer from Kurglow. If you have them as separate commits, it'll be much easier to make them separate PRs if you have to. And you can probably start to think about how you would do it with the sticky note analogy, right? I'm not saying you.
I mean, the trick is to be diligent and do commits and do lots of commits, right, along the way. Even if you don't, not every commit has to be a pull request, is what we're saying, right? A pull request can have a bunch of commits in it, right?
Yes.
Or they could be separate pull requests.
Right. This might blow your mind a little bit. There has been a rare case where I have taken a commit that I've completed and then said, you know what, I wish that was 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it after the fact. That's one thing you can do with rebasing. We probably shouldn't get too deep into those weeds. Now, listen, there are plenty of developers out there who just think, like, and I'm just being honest, that this is a waste of time. Why do you... There's a vanity to why you care so much about, like, who cares, right? We got to ship some code. And my feeling is that I think that when you're trying to figure out what went wrong 6 weeks ago, when the customer maybe says, hey, there's a bug, and you realize that it affects the last, I don't know, 6-8 weeks of deployments, that not closing your eyes and saying, I can't figure out what happened. Does it always save you? I'm not going to tell you it always saves you, but it could, especially if we got better at using tools like Git Bisect, which basically is a way that you can run a script from here to here, and it'll start in the middle and say, well, did the script work? Well, then it must be from here to here, and it'll start in the middle of that. And it's a pretty cool tool that's completely underutilized, and the reason is because it's a little hard to use. It's going to be command line only. People aren't going to know how to use it. I can't say I've ever used it successfully on the job. I've just played with it at home. But yeah.
All right.
It's a ton there, you know.
It's getting pretty late.
Yep.
Right? We've been going at this for a while. We got some ideas for next week. I'm kind of excited. I hope people that are here with us tonight want to come back. Now Kurglow is saying part 3. Beautiful.
I think he meant to type 33, and the keyboard let him down and only put a 3 in.
Yeah, maybe this just keeps going. But I hope people will come back again next week, because we'll be here at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday night. Live on Git, live on Twitch and on YouTube, having fun, and talking about all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. No, the thing about it is I hope people understand that I really struggle with the best way to approach this, because I don't want to make it more confusing. I think the sticky note thing's pretty good. That's about the best I've done so far, though. the rest I struggle with.
The sticky note thing is better than Gomez's law, and probably you need to do like a logo or something like that, and that would be a T-shirt. I think your sticky note analogy has really helped a lot of people learn over the years. I know you've been using that for a while,
Yeah.
and yeah, no, I think this is a great show. I'm learning stuff, and I think people that are watching and listening are learning too. So yeah, so I think we should leave on a high note, take it out, Chris, and any plug we need to make again for next week, but I think we should hit the road.
Yeah. If you don't know about the meetup, meetup.com, it's easier to go to meetup.com and search for the Dev Talk Show than to have a URL, because that's a nice long URL. On Twitter, the Dev Talk Show. You can watch everything we did again tonight on YouTube, youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show. And we never got around to letting folks watching us in the future, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the like button, give us a thumbs up, comment down below, tell us your Git tips and frustrations. And listen, I know sometimes some of the things I believe might be a little controversial. I'm totally accepted that. Get work done. Don't worry about pleasing, some specific plaque that I might put up. Get your work done. Try not to be frustrated. But I hope that you're not throwing your repo away as much after we talk tonight, and maybe not as nervous about what happens if you delete a branch, or how to kind of fix little mistakes that you might not have known what to do. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I didn't start on my feature branch. Hopefully you're past it. And if not, we'll be back here next time with a couple other things. Maybe we'll get deeper into merge conflicts, how they really work. And I do think that there's even a show about us talking about tools. So look, we could talk about Git for the rest of the year probably, but that's it for a long night. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. Thanks for all the questions. For Rich Ross and Andy Schwamm, we'll see you next week, the 23rd, next time at 8:30 US Eastern Time on the Dev Talk Show.